Hello and welcome back to another news video for Final Fantasy XIV, this time looking at the PAX West panel for 2024, which is putting the U in UI, tailoring the Final Fantasy XIV experience. This was broadcast on Twitch and YouTube, and was also for the attendees there at PAX. It featured Foxclon, Kei Odagiri, and of course the fantastic translation from Amy-san. Kei Odagiri, if you don't know who they are, have been around since 2012 as the UI designer for Final Fantasy XIV, currently the lead UI designer, that's their title, and they've spent 12 years on the project from the beta test of A Realm Reborn up until Dawntrail currently, so that's a long time. Responsibilities for Kei Odagiri's job include quite a lot of things that I'm surprised at. This includes movement and camera systems, targeting systems for both basic and ground targeting, system config, character config, your keybinds, gamepad calibration, button configuration, the element-specific and universal UI scaling system, the ability to disable UI features, text commands, the auto-translation dictionary, configuration backups, so you can, move between PCs. In terms of game mechanics, on the control side, the active time maneuvers are responsibilities of this job, snipe mode, Gold Saucer Air Force One, the PvP spectator mode, and then we've got in-game features such as the waymarks, the signs, performance actions, control system performance assistance and assemble mode. Group pose is his baby, idling camera, duty recorder, adventurer plates and portraits. Then there's the accessibility options of color filtering, visual alerts and mouse sonar, and miscellaneous ones including the launcher login features, the implementation of PlayStation Xbox control features, console features, trophies and achievements, etc., and the embedding DualSense support for the Windows version, etc. So that is a lot of things that I'm surprised are included under that one job title, and I think most of you probably watching this will be like, really? All of that under the lead UI designer? Turns out that is exactly what is on his shoulders. In terms of looking at those then individually, I'm most surprised by the in-game features as well as just the UI systems, like the performance actions for Bard, stuff like that, as well as, responsibilities for accessibility options, as well as the login launcher. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Absolutely mind-blowing. So obviously when it comes to the movement and camera system, as they talked about in further detail here, this includes auto-run, auto-follow, lock-on, the ability to ride pillion on a two-person mount, swimming and diving controls, the flying mount system, legacy movement, as well as the camera system, as well as standard movement, which is really interesting. They actually have a bit of a couple of slides here for a UI system reborn for 2.0, where they talk about the development and how they wanted to focus more on both keyboard and mouse as well as gamepad. And this was back in 2011. Look at that original slide there that they had. And obviously they wanted to implement a total overhaul in terms of design, as they say, functionality and customization of all of the UI windows. This included complete support for mouse and keyboard input with an intuitive drag and drop multi-window system, along with the realization of a dedicated gamepad interface. And of course, I think they managed to do that. They learned a lot from, obviously, Final Fantasy XI. They said offering parity of experience for both mouse and keyboard and gamepad. That's something that they obviously worked on for 11, and they would obviously bring forward. They also thought a lot about how World of Warcraft does this, and at the time, World of Warcraft didn't have any gamepad support. I mean, you can do it through add-ons right now, I think. I'm not sure if they have native support, but they wanted more accessibility for their MMO than others that were currently on the market. It sort of set that trend. So obviously they wanted to create a world-class MMO title, enticing the core demographic of MMO players and encouraging them to play. That was, to stay rather, and play. That was their mandate. In terms of building and iterating on a robust mouse and keyboard input system, which is the thing they wanted to talk about, they've been working very hard to look at other examples of games on the market, implement features, look at feedback. Feedback has been one of the most important things they talked about quite heavily on how they listen to player feedback of what people want, what people would prefer for systems to be, quality of life features. And there's been a lot of iterations over the last 11 years. And they say that they're focusing on, giving all their hard work towards this. They did a little bit of a statistic here in terms of if the majority of players per region used your keyboard and mouse or a gamepad, and you'll see here that North America has 60% of keyboard and mouse, Europe has 67%, and it's completely the opposite for Japan. The majority of people have 77% of gamepad. Now, the reason for this, in my opinion, is because personal computers have always been less socially acceptable at home for a lot of Japanese people, at least from what I've seen in documentaries, just simply because of the space and it taking up more of that. Whereas a games console has always been typically something that you'll see in a Japanese home, as opposed to, in Europe or North America, much more so. It's much more common to have a games console because it's something you can hide away, you can put the controllers away, that sort of thing. So it kind of reflects that. The big difference between Europe and North America, there's not much of a difference, but it's surprising to me that there are more North American players statistically here that use gamepad. But there's nothing wrong with gamepad. I've seen some incredible stuff cleared on gamepad. It's just very interesting to see that they would be alienating 40% of their North American audience if they hadn't have done gamepad support. And likewise in Europe, and even worse so in Japan, right? That would be a huge portion of their market that required gamepad support. It was something they expected, which is really cool. In terms of the two movement settings, we've got Legacy and Standard. This is an interesting one. They did a bit of a usage breakdown statistic. In Japan, 97% of players use Legacy controls. I mean, it is the best way to play, in my opinion, because obviously moving backwards and forwards with your actual character, changing direction means you can run directly south with the S key, as opposed to having to, strafe walk. It's still the best system in my opinion. I love it. But yeah, as you can see, Europe 65% and 69% nice in North America. It's quite telling, isn't it? Definitely, if you've never tried Legacy mode, give it a go. Standard mode, in my opinion, is not really that useful, and it can be difficult to adjust to. I don't think I'd be able to do Savage Raids in Standard mode. It would be a lot of strafe walking. In terms of group pose then, because that's another feature that Kei Odagiri has worked hard on, is the evolution of it, right? We didn't have it at the start, and they focused on trying to capture memories that players could have with their friends along their journeys, right? So they obviously wanted to field all of this. They offered questions to their audience and the forums, of which, the feedback came back. It would be nice to have a feature where we could take pictures with our friends, sort of document our history through Eorzea. And it says, the early implementation, the test implementation of Group Pose was the feature placed copies of the players and party members' characters on the field and had them execute emotes on loop. That was the test sort of bed for that. And then when it came out, that's basically what you got, as you can see here. I'm not sure why. They've got beautiful Ilmeg in the background here, but obviously it was before that. And as you can see, we've got the patch numbers for all of the relative things. So in 3.2, they had camera orientation can now be adjusted, camera focus can now be adjusted, and facing the camera can now be toggled on and off, and pets can now be included in group posts. But as you can see, every patch, so 3.2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 4.0, then 4.4, 5, patch 5.0, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 6.0, and 6.3, all of those options have basically been 11 years in the making, and obviously not 11 years to get to group pose, but it's incredible, isn't it? And I've not seen all of the features added from the patch notes on one slide before, and seeing it like this, you start to realize the extra effort that this on its own takes, without considering all of the other elements of the job title of lead UI designer that Kei Odagiri has to, be responsible for. One thing they're talking about then, future support, phishing. this is something that is coming. So in 7.1, we're going to be able to use group pose, G-pose, for our fishers. This should be in 7.1, they say. And yeah, it's a highly requested feature. Currently, if you're fishing and you want to take a picture of you reeling in that big fish, yeah, you have to do it with the UI turned off, basically, because the group pose feature won't let you enter it. There are a few like weird glitches to get into it, but let's not talk about those. But yes, it's coming. So that's really good. That's a good feature that they announced here. Additionally, portrait screenshots. So taking your picture portrait, if you wanted to use like a social media portrait or something of your character, you'd have to probably take a landscape picture because it default takes them in landscape, and then you'd have to crop them and mess around with them, where apparently there is a feature in the works that will allow us to actually take portrait pictures, profile pictures, that kind of thing. It says work continues to add the ability to pan horizontally and vertically after adjusting your roll angle. So you'll be able to obviously adjust things better. So the actual camera mode itself on the gamepad or on your mouse and keyboard, you'd be able to, instead of just doing A and D to slide it left and right, you'd be able to do, completely rotate it, rotate the image, and then pan, which is very cool. That's something I'm looking forward to as well. Then, of course, we've got this. This is probably the final but most exciting thing from the entirety of the PAX presentation. This is a first look at the chat bubble feature. This is something a lot of other content creators seem to be absolutely nuts for. It's something I wasn't really necessarily, against or for. I'm kind of indifferent. It's cool if people want this, and the Japanese audience certainly seem to want this from the forums that I've read. It could be quite fun. It could be quite fun having these chat bubbles appear, as long as obviously these have a toggle function to you being able to turn them off from certain people, things like that. But they're quite cool. So as you can see here, there's some players doing a bit of RP. There's like, thank you, I must now take my leave. See you again. And then you've got hello. I think that is an NPC though, in the green text, and then you're responding to that, so it shows up. I suppose it's all about immersion, world building for the RP community. This is a huge thing. Obviously, it's going to make the world building feel a lot more real when you can actually not have to stare at the chat box down on the bottom left, right? Oh, actually, no, that is green text from a player. Look, FFXIV PvP1. So they're using a player. So there must be a way of changing the text then. Text colors or something. That's interesting. I wonder if there is a toggle to change what color text you have. Obviously, the party text is in blue because the party window is in blue. So presumably the text would change depending on what you changed the text to for that. So I'm guessing that's say chat and then that's some other form of chat. I don't know. But anyway, that's really exciting. A lot of people will be definitely down for that. It doesn't sort of, interest me either way in terms of I don't hate it and I don't love it. It's a cool idea and I would like to see it in the game, definitely, if it's something that expands and enriches the RP experience, which is a huge portion of our community now. And that is not the only thing. We've also got this. This is actually your whiteboard editing system. So this was shown a very, very long time ago. So what this is, you might be looking at this and thinking this is a Blue Mage Mass Carnival level or something. This allows you to place icons. As you can see, there's the blue lines and dots and resize them around job icons. So you can drag those onto this. And this is actually your standard arena. You can change, I believe, the type of arena, if it's square or circle. And you can place markers down. And you can actually do basically... it's a whiteboard editing, so you can share this with other people. So instead of having to tab out of the game to actually go and watch like a slideshow of how you're supposed to do a mechanic, perhaps your raid lead wants to help by looking at some strats online, maybe implement some uptime strats. You can actually plan out the fight in the game on this whiteboard by moving these character pieces around. And because you can set multiples of these, it looks like up to 50, which may or may not be enough, you'd be able to switch between them. So you could have this as the start point, then switch to number 12, and then perhaps like, oh, it's tanks out and healers in with DPS in mid or something. You could do that. You could do mechanics and then showcase this. And yeah, it would probably take up quite a few of these. You'll notice that these are item placements. I don't know if this... Why? Oh, actually, no. These are all the actual pieces. So you can add up to 50 elements per board. It doesn't say how many boards you can have. Hopefully it's more than 50. Because some fights are going to require. But if you're looking at certain phases and you want to illustrate this better to your teammates, this is a really good feature without you having to, leave the game to actually look at something on a website or something that may or may not be everyone's cup of tea. And it's also something especially useful for people who play on controller. Not everybody is going to have access to a second monitor or to tab out of the video game to a Chrome browser or whatever it might be. So this is really cool. Very excited for this. They showed this a long time ago, but apparently this is in the works. They don't say when it's going to come out, but honestly, things are starting to look like 7.1 in my opinion. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's pretty much the PAX panel, and I honestly think Kei Odagiri is definitely to be commended for his hard work. I'm surprised how many things are included in his job title, and I have even more respect than I already had for Gentleman, and I really think this is great. But yeah, highlights definitely are obviously, the whiteboard element. That's going to change everything. Hopefully people use that. It's such a good tool. The chat bubbles are amazing for people who wanted that, and of course we've got the portrait feature. But yeah, hopefully we get more panels like this because it was incredibly fun. It was condensed, and yeah, it was nice to peer into the world of designers and what they get up to. Anyway, let me know what you think about these elements. Are you excited about any of the upcoming parts? Are you as surprised as I am for basically all of the job roles just for this lead UI designer? I am. Let me know below, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.